So this is the very first Royal Starr FANME Q&A. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
How's it going? I'm Dave Donaldson. I'm 6'1", Scorpio, and
You enjoy long walks on the beach?
long walks on the beach.
There you go. So what do you do in the film industry?
I work as a grip and a gaffer.
Okay.
Just basically, if it's anything to do with lighting, that's mainly what I do. It's not to say that I don't do like acting or some work in camera as well, but mainly grip and electric.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna just jump right into the questions.
Sure.
So for starting filmmakers, what kind of lights would you recommend that they purchase?
Purchase. Okay.
Or rent? You know, any kind of lights that you would recommend starting.
There's three different types of sources that you can get. You'll either get something that a lot of people are going crazy over LED right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I should say there's four sources. There's LED, tungsten, HMI, and fluorescent. Fluorescent is kind of making its way out right now, but I'd say if you're trying to go for your first kit for what you're going to use to light things, go with probably a standard tungsten kit, or if you're going to go LED, something that's bicolor.
Mm-hmm.
But tungsten tends to be the foundation of a lot of different lighting, and it's just because it's like probably the best type of source that you can use for skin tones, mainly. But go with the tungsten kit because those are pretty much, they're not really ever going to go anywhere. And something that I learned when I went to Cinegear Atlanta last year is that there was like a panel of like 5 cinematographers, and one of the people inside the audience had asked one the cinematographers, what light would you recommend? He basically got asked the same question: what light would you recommend, and why is it an airy sky panel? Which I thought was a great way of wording a question, because the sky panels have gone crazy as far as how much everybody loves them. Mm-hmm. But all the way across the board, and they all said they actually prefer a 2K tungsten through a book light. So it's a 2,000 watt orange, 3,200 degree Kelvin light that they do through a book light. And I thought that was really interesting, and even the fact that one of the people that was sitting inside of the panel was Peter McDougall, mm-hmm. Or I think I got his name right, but he's the cinematographer for Game of Thrones. And they were talking about how all the different lights that they had available on set and stuff, and 9 times out of 10 it was a 2K tungsten source being used. So I would say that's because most DPs and cinematographers out there know what tungsten light can do for skin tones for their actors. Mm-hmm. And it's also working with something that they're comfortable with. So I would say start with a tungsten kit.
All right, awesome. That was a great answer.
Pretty in-depth one too.
Yeah, no, actually,
I have a problem with rambling. So
no, that was great. I actually do have a follow-up question to that. So for those who might not know, what is a book light? So
a book light is basically, we'll take this wall back here. Mm-hmm. You're going to set up 2 pieces of diffusion, and they're going to be kind of in a, let's just say, 8-foot section by 8-foot section. That'll be your first, that'll be your bounce, but you're also going to have your actual diffusion that's going to be in front of it. And it creates kind of like what most photographers would call like a V-flat, which is just kind of, take 2 4x8 boards and tape them together, mm-hmm. and it's going to create this kind of V. Well, you do the same thing with diffusion with grip, which is you're going to take that 2K tungsten, for example, you're going to hit that first bit of diffusion, but then you have diffusion that's on the other side of it, so it's going to hit this diffusion and then bounce through the other diffusion, which a lot of cinematographers tend to like because it gives a better look. Mm-hmm. I'm still kind of learning how to be a cinematographer, but I understand the terminology of a book light. Yeah. But what type of light they want on it and what type of color they want on it, that's all up to them. But that's something that most people, or a lot of cinematographers will use for something like well, even just like interview setups like this, you know, or maybe you see on a lot of reality shows, you'll see somebody in front of a green screen. They'll take like an HMI light, throw it through a book light, which is kind of double bouncing and shooting through, and then hitting the talent, which will give them this really nice, soft kind of wraparound light on one side or the other, depending on how they put it together.
Okay, cool. And for everybody in the audience that's watching, if you have any questions, please don't be afraid to ask. But we're gonna keep going. For aspiring grips, anybody that's looking to get into grip and electric in general, where would you recommend that they go to find work? Whether it be online or in person?
So one of the really great sources that I like to look through for pretty much any type of production work, it's not just grip and electric, it's called Staff Me Up.
Okay, yeah.
And you pay basically a subscription yearly. It's pretty cheap in comparison to what you can work out with rates with other productions. So it kind of pays itself off, but you can, if you're in your local area, it doesn't matter what state that you're in, you can set it so that, like, let's say you want to be a production assistant, a grip, a producer, whatever, you can set it up to give you alerts. So that it doesn't necessarily, I think they've changed it where it can alert your phone, but it'll go to your email, and then you can look up the job, see what city and state it's in, and then you can write them kind of like a cover letter right there, along with all of your, what would it be, your credits with the work that you've done in the past, and so you can submit your job that way, and then they'll contact you. You'll list your phone number, they'll end up calling you. So staffmeup.com would be my go-to, especially for a place like here in Michigan where we have to travel for work most of the time. You know, I've got alerts set up in Ohio and Chicago and et cetera. So when productions come in and they're looking for grip and electric, they can go on that site, dial that in, I get a message, send them a message, they call me, and then we, you know, negotiate from there. But yeah, that would be the site.
Awesome. Alrighty. So I see you have some things with you here.
I did bring some toys.
Yes. What would you like to go through and explain and show off some of the stuff that you brought?
Sure. So I got my tool pouches.
Okay.
Pretty much standard, couple of leather gloves. Working with hot lights all the time. So always good to have that. Some tools that I brought. I won't go through all of them because I think that'll take forever. I do have an episode though where I explain pretty much everything that's in my pouch, but I'll give you kind of the normal things that I would bring to set. There would be a sniffer to just basically test out Edison plugs to make sure that they're wired correctly. Very, very easy tool. That way, well, like I just said, you can figure out if it's wired correctly inside of the wall. If you're dealing with house power, screwdriver, Leatherman. Everybody's got to have a Leatherman. Or just a multi-tool of some sort. I guess it doesn't have to be Leatherman. But speed wrench. I can go back to that in a second. I also have a C-wrench or crescent wrench, just for, I can show it again in a second. I would also bring surveillance for walkies.
Okay.
Go ahead, because most productions that you work on, they're never going to have just an open walkie. It's not just for sound, but it's also to kind of keep departments talk to other departments. So there's that. Pocket knife.
Yeah.
And I don't have one in here, but a box cutter, because if you're going to be cutting gels, it's a lot easier to cut with a razor blade than it is a knife that's like not that sharp from whatever that you were using from. And so, I mean, I've got some tape, some electrical tape. It's red because normally I would mark something NFG, which is no effing good. And that would be something that, like, I'm just trying to tell the rest of the crew, like, don't use this thing. That works for pretty much every department too, camera mainly. But then I have some matte black paper tape. A lot of people will use gaff tape for everything. This is actually what you're supposed to be using, because gaff tape will actually rip wallpaper down. It'll mess with varnish, a whole bunch of other things. So you're actually supposed to be using paper tape. Something I didn't know until I made an episode of it.
Oh yeah! Wow, look at that.
In here, well, this guy too. This is a new wrench that I got, but this is meant for cheese burrows and different types of rigging that I might do for camera setups, or maybe it's car rigging or overhead rigging of some sort. Also used for truss systems. I've never worked on a truss system, but that's what that ends for. And just some basic, electrical meters that you would find any electrician using. So that's those. Probably my two go-tos would probably be these two guys, which would be a speed wrench and a hater wrench. Because most of the stuff that we might rig overhead, they're all set with set screws. So, for example, this ear, if I'm rigging something up overhead, it's kind of easier to get things on and off, and this speed rail with this ear, you're on set, you're usually trying to save time anywhere that you can.
Right.
You can make one of your own, but it's kind of nice to have just one dedicated little dinky tool for this job. So there is that. And then the hater wrench is for these guys back here. You can get a lot of different wrenches to do this job. You can even use, like a C wrench, but this just makes it easier. Put it on, put it off, that kind of thing. Those would be my main tools, but that wouldn't be all my tools. I would probably have like a truck or a van,
Of course,
with much more.
right.
But
To narrow those tools down, what would you recommend the most to new, like people that are just starting to get into electric? So what, out of everything, if you had to pick, let's say 5 things that were like the essential items, obviously other than tape because that's pretty essential itself, what would you have to pick?
if I had to pick which tools,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would say if you're starting,
Yeah.
Leatherman and a crescent wrench.
Okay.
And if you can find, this is kind of how I started. This is still the same screwdriver that I've had for pretty much ever, but much before I even had a speed wrench, I would actually pull out, one of the bits to do the exact same job as that. The difference is that, while this ratchet is and still makes things a lot quicker, this can fit in a lot tighter spaces that, this, you're going to get blocked 9 times out of 10 from the handle. But
Right.
I would say Leatherman and a C wrench just to start, and then as you move on, get a speed wrench and then get a hater wrench.
Okay. And how much do things like that usually cost in terms of, I guess it
This-
depends on the brand?
This actually, so these two things, these are new, but it's not that I haven't had one before. It's just they're new in my pouch because other wrenches that you can find like this from pretty much any what would you call it, dealer, big box store or whatever. The problem is that the middle is where you need it to be a lot wider, and on some of the ones that you would probably buy at, say, like a big box store or something like that, you typically can't fit on that nut. So just because of the fact that you've got like the rest of the threading going all the way through. So anyway, I'm rambling, but this is actually from a company called gripsupport.com. It's a friend of mine, Greg Flores. He's a grip out in Los Angeles. He's got this, and then he's also got this speed wrench, and they're basically grips that are building grip tools. So did that answer the question? I don't know if I answered that or not.
Just on a budget, how much
Oh, yeah. So the wrench was $40, I think, when I bought it, and then the speed wrench was $25, I think, from a website called Modern Studio Equipment. That's actually, that one in particular, Greg just sent to me, but this was the one that I bought from Modern.
Okay.
And I think that was like $25. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I noticed a couple times you had mentioned you made a video on some of these, on what was in your toolkit. So you have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
What is it like? What is it like starting out as a YouTube channel, slowly growing?
Frightening.
Frightening.
Which is weird because, you know, like I wanted to act, I wanted to be in front of the camera and stuff like that, but it's frightening at first because it's just like if you're trying to make like any type of film or anything like that, you put it out there, you hope people love it, and then you realize that there's so much more work that goes behind it, just trying to promote your own channel. And when you start your own channel too, you have a lot of people who will immediately just try and tear you a new one when you're first getting started out, and so you just gotta like ignore it, and then coming up with like a workflow too. So
Of course, yeah.
Terrifying.
So let me ask, if you could go back and tell your past self anything to get them started as a gaffer, any mistakes that you've made that you could learn from, you could tell them anything, what would you tell them?
Find a new career path. No, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. So because like the thing is like when I first started, I still very much wanted to act and do stand-up comedy, and I was a PA for what felt like forever. But it wasn't until I started actually I think most people will look at grip and electric and they go, this is intimidating. Like, it looks like I could stop crying with this thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? But the thing is that it's just heavy. And so don't be afraid to like touch something like this. And I'm not saying on all sets, you know, make sure you got like permission by one of the grips or electrics, because it can get really, really hazy if you don't. But if you have the opportunity to say go on a smaller set and look at certain things that maybe you've never touched before but you've seen on sets all over, don't be afraid to just say, hey, like, what is that thing or whatever. You know, ask the questions, and then if there's something that like somebody says, oh, that's a cardellini or whatever, and you're gonna go, well, what the hell is a cardellini, and then go home and do research. So don't be afraid to get your hands dirty, or don't be afraid to fail.
Okay.
Just go and make sure that you're getting your hands on the equipment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any resources, like books or videos, that you would recommend for?
There's a book that every grip and electric will recommend. It's a Set Lighting Technician's Handbook, and it's written by, and I might screw up his name because it's almost sexual, but it's such a great book. It's Set Lighting Technician's Handbook by Harry Box. I'm pretty sure I have that correct.
Okay.
I haven't read it in a really long time, and I haven't even really read it all the way through. It's just like, again, it's part of that research part where it's like, oh, you know, what is this? And that is like, got everything that you would need to know. It was written years and years ago by a grip and electrician out in Los Angeles, and it's just full of so much. It's basically the grip and electrician's YouTube channel before there was YouTube. So that's a really great resource to look up.
Awesome.
But I mean, and there's other channels that you can look at too. There's a friend of mine, Luke Searveld, lives in San Francisco, and he does pretty much kind of what I do, but more in a vlog style. And he'll actually show you. He's got like 220 some odd videos right now. He's doing really, really well getting the content out there. But his channel is called Meet the Gaffer, or if you're looking up on YouTube, it's just Luke Searveld. But there's that. There's I can't think of. I mean, gripsupport.com has a lot of nice like articles and that you can read. You can actually see some of the builds using some of the stuff. So gripsupport.com, and then I would say there's a guy on Facebook, another friend of mine, Craig Bernie Burns. He's got a Facebook, what do you call it, group called Bernie's Apple Box, and he's got his grip and electric company out in Los Angeles where he's got a bunch of trucks, and then every Friday at like Well, we're EST, so it's like 2 o'clock their time, 5 o'clock our time. He'll go live with like real cinematographers, producers, and et cetera, and he interviews them up on there. So,
So, what is one of your most memorable stories on set, and what did you learn from that experience?
memorable experience on set.
And it can be embarrassing if you're willing to tell an embarrassing story.
Oh, I have no shame.
All right.
That's not true. No, embarrassing story on set. I guess this probably would have happened like 2 years ago.
Mhm.
It was embarrassing, but it was probably the third time I ever did a real distro. For me, I was working with a gaffer here in the area, Chris McLeod, and we were I can't remember, it was some sort of church that we were at. It was a one-day shoot, and this had been the first time I was actually kind of running most of the sticks of distro into this building, and I know maybe that is a little bit over some people's heads. So sticks are basically all the electrical cables that are going to go from the generator to distribute all over set. And this was, again, second or third time I've ever done something like this, but I was the one close to the generator, and I'd hooked the sticks into the generator while it was on, even though it wasn't plugged into the rest of the distro yet, but I didn't know at the time that, no, you have to lay out all of the cables first before you plug in the generator, because, again, you could electrocute somebody. So it was a big, big no-no. And I was maybe 20 feet away from him, and all of a sudden, through the surveillance, I hear Chris, and he's like, "Guys, I don't know who did this, but we can't plug in the distro into the power plant yet. Do not do that," kind of thing. And I just kind of sat there like, oops.
Trying to pretend it wasn't you.
Yeah, I mean, I was shy.
Oh.
As far as electric goes.
Mhm.
I'm hanging out with guys who definitely know what they're doing as far as electric, where I come from more of a grip background. So, not to say that they're not closely related, but still, that was one of those moments where I was like, all right, I should just go shoot myself or something. It was bad. But.
So that was, it could have been a lot worse. What are some other like no-nos or anything like some mistakes that could be made on set that could be easily avoided?
It happens all the time, and it gets beaten to death. But setting a C-stand correctly, there is a way to do it, making sure that the biggest leg is pointed in the direction of the load. That would be one of them. Another one is using gaff tape when you shouldn't. We did this. I know we talked about this before we went live.
We did. Yeah, you mentioned that we should be using paper tape instead.
So we should be using paper tape, and it's simply because it'll rip wallpaper off the walls, and it'll pull up varnish and etc. So that's also a big no-no. But it gets abused all the time. Like if depending on where you are, if you're in like New York or Los Angeles, they know this because it's repetitive. But here or on reality shows when it's traveling a lot, it's just they're going through just hundreds and hundreds of yards of gaff tape, and realistically, depending on the application, it's kind of like, did you really need to tape a sign to a wall that was made out of paper with gaff tape? Because gaff tape has a lot of strength, and all you're doing is taping paper to a wall. So it's just stuff like that. Other no-nos, I'm sure I could go down a list of things. But those are just the ones that are coming off the top of my head.
Of course, yeah.
Can I get that? I know you just brought that up.
Yeah, of course.
Are we sponsored?
No,
No?
not currently. There you go.
All right.
Alrighty, so let's keep going here. What is some advice you would give to any beginning directors and DPs who are new to working with a gaffer?
Don't be a dick.
No.
Well, I mean, and that's just kind of all the way across the board. Have a positive attitude. For DPs, something that has happened ever since I mean, I would say the big filmmaking, independent filmmaking boom of, what would it be, 10 years ago or so,
Okay.
is that you can buy your 7,000, 25,000, 40,000, 180,000 camera, but I think that advice for cinematographers is that if you don't know the type of look that you're going for, do the best you can to try and translate it with your gaffer or your grip, because they know the terminology and they know the different stops, or hopefully they do, to try and give you the look that you're going for. Grip and electric doesn't really talk to the director too much, so I can't really speak for that. But where a cinematographer, hopefully they've kind of gone through the ranks to kind of learn a lot of the different equipment and what it does, and the different types of diffusion, or different colors, and just really, I've been on a couple of sets where a DP has walked up to me and says, "How would you do it?" And it's just kind of like, I would do it how you want me to, drill sergeant. Like I don't know,
Right.
And so you can kind of weed out like who's a little bit more experienced with being a cinematographer or has a lighting background versus not. So if you don't, I think the best thing that you can do is just be open and honest with your grip and electric team and be like, look, I want this. It's my first time. I don't know, whatever the case may be. I just feel like I want this to look a little bit orange or something. Try and get it out as best as you possibly can, and hopefully you have somebody who's receptive, who can just sit there and go, okay, I can do this, this, and this. And I think that also is what would make you a good gripper or electrician, is being able to give the person options. So.
Okay, cool. And kind of going off of that, what do you wish other departments would consider more when it comes to lighting, whether it be, more space for you to work, or...
I don't think space... Space is always going to be tight. Yeah. Kind of work with whatever you can. Don't grab anything that you're not familiar with, or place it anywhere, because... when you're trying to, how do I answer this? Ask the question again. Maybe it'll.
What do you wish other departments would consider more when it comes to lighting?
Don't get in front of it. Probably the easiest way. No. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that one. Because I think it just varies from set to set. Yeah, I got nothing for that one.
Okay. What are some of the biggest challenges you face on set?
Quick setups. So a lot of places that you'll go to will always have this idea of what they want in their head, and they haven't really given grip and electric enough time to try and maybe put everything where they want it to be. And so let's say somebody's like, they're in a mad dash because they're maybe trying to keep up with the day. So they all of a sudden they want like a bunch of different things or lights built, within 5 minutes or something like that. And while we all wish that we could do that, sometimes you're limited in manpower. So you basically, there's like maybe 2 or 3 of you, but now you've got to lug like, I don't know, call it 10 stands or something like that, 50, 60 yards away, but they need things to do quick. So it's just like not considering that some work is going to take a little bit of time, and just being mindful how long it's going to take to set things up, I guess. Hope I answered that right.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was great. So, kind of an odd question. What keeps you interested in doing grip and electric?
So like I said, I wanted to be an actor in a comic, but there was a time when I was working as a janitor at a machine shop where they built overhead cranes, and I learned a lot about just how different things are machined different metals that are being extruded and welding and things that were being put together. Not that I really did a whole lot of that there. I mean, I was just pretty much there, cleaning the toilets and mopping the floors kind of thing. But I did start to take a little bit of an interest in machining. And not that I really did too much there, but it did kind of interest me. And I wasn't really, like I was saying earlier, I wasn't really afraid to grab things like this anymore because I had seen all these things that had been done inside of this machine shop. So to me, I'm like, oh, okay, and being able to problem solve and put some things together, I think is pretty huge. Being able to, I think the bigger, and I think a lot of grips would feel this way too, the bigger the setup that you have to put together, it's kind of when everything is completely up and it looks like all these complicated builds, it's being able to like kind of sit back and look forward and go, I just built all of that, with these hands. But yeah, I think it's just it's kind of like rewarding in like oh, I'm a big burly man now because I made this, whatever. It's a little prideful, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So, what are some terms that everybody should know for grip and electric?
10-1.
Okay.
Which means I'm going to the bathroom. No, this comes down to just a lot of walkie etiquette. Just being able to say it, or just being able to understand the language. I think everybody understands some of them, like copy that or ETA or 20 or something like that. So there's all those ones that pretty much all of production knows. But then there's other terms in grip and electric that sometimes are not called what they should be.
Okay.
So for example, a 650 watt tungsten light is called a tweenie. You also have, I don't know all the names of the tungstens, but that's the main one that I would know. Some other terms would be like a kicker, which is like a backlight, hitting the back of your subject. Knowing that you're going to have like a key and a fill, kind of like the two lights that you have going on here now. Knowing what there are a couple of terms that are a little bit sexual. I don't know how blue I'm allowed to be on this.
I don't know either.
Okay, I probably can't say like an F-bomb or anything.
Probably.
But we have something that's considered a beaver board, which some people get very offended by hearing, but it's actually just a baby plate, or I don't have anything to show, but it's a baby plate hooked to a pancake apple box, and it's just so that you can put a light on the floor. Some people see it as a sexual term, other people see it as a completely different term, because it like resembles an actual animal from above. But it's stuff like that. There's also another one called butt plug. It's true, it's what it's called. But that's basically a junior male end to a baby end. And baby would be, and also knowing junior versus baby stands too. So baby stands are kind of like what you have here holding this light up. It's, a 5/8 stand. And then you have combo stands, which hold your juniors. So combo stands are a little bit bigger, and it's basically, instead of having that one little 5/8 baby pin on the top, it's actually, a hole on the top that you're going to stick the light in or the piece of rigging into.
Gotcha.
Lollipops and gobos, the list just kind of goes on. There's it's not just one thing, but there's too many.
Of course. Yeah.
But it's just something that you can kind of like pick up over time. But the more that you pick those up, the faster you can kind of work with your crew. So they're definitely important, but just take some experience to get to know.
For sure. Is there anybody in the industry that you've taken inspiration from, whether that be someone you know personally or?
Only because I'm thinking about him right now, because he's done this for so long. But my buddy Craig Simons, he actually, he's my best friend's older brother, and he's been doing grip and election. I won't say grip and election. It is this season. he's been doing grip and electric and rigging for a very, very long time. Car shows, etc. He actually knows how to work truss systems, etc. That guy will school me any day of the week. But he's really, really great, and I've known him my entire life. So the fact that he's been able to live the dream for a very long time here in Michigan, and he loves it just as much as I do. And now it's weird because like I knew him when I was a kid, and now it's like I can actually sit next to him and I can talk shop with him and etc. So I'd say he's definitely a part of my inspiration with grip and electric.
Awesome. Are there any films that you admire for their use of lighting? Anything that comes to mind?
You know, there's a point when like you're watching a film now and you think like, well, how did they light that, or how did they build this, or what did they use? And you could definitely see the different types of colors and stuff and notice what they've done. I think that comes to I think you almost have to be at that point where you've learned enough about camera and you've learned enough about lighting where you can really sit there and be like, okay, I want to mimic this style or something like that, and here's how I get there. I can't say too much, although I do love looking at a lot of gear that's rigged up, like on gripsupport.com that I was saying earlier. One of the things that I've seen, like more like behind the scenes stuff, I would say, and even though I haven't seen it yet, and I don't know how people are going to take this, but I haven't seen like the new Blade Runner, but I've seen that, you know, shot that Roger Deakins did where he's got like a bunch of tungsten lights overhead and it's bouncing up against water and it's creating this amazing effect on the back wall. And I don't even know what went into that as far as his thought process or whatever, but I look at something and I'm like, what is going on in your head?
Right.
You know, that came to that. So it's still something I want to look up, but I don't know, it's just behind the scenes stuff more so than actually just, you know, how they did Iron Man or something in a certain shot or something.
Gotcha. So what's usually your process for prepping a shoot?
So that usually starts with a conversation between the cinematographer, the key grip, and the gaffer. That basically they'll decide like what is it that they're trying to accomplish, and then you know there's also some budgetary constraints, and then they'll say, okay, well we can do X, Y, and Z. It will start with a location scout basically, and then they'll say, okay, well we're going to need this. The sun's going to be over there, so we need this. Yada 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 yada, and I'm talking on a bigger shoot. You then have to kind of price out everything that you're going to need. You're more than 9 times out of 10 you're going to be renting something, whether that be an entire truck or maybe just a couple of things. And then you know you go to do the shoot. So the prep and process of that kind of starts with the location scout. For reality shows, a lot of them are typically the same. They typically want, and actually if I can add to like the lights that I suggested earlier, my recommendation would be buy 4 C-stands, buy 2 families of apple boxes, buy 2 additional full apples, buy or build 4 50-foot stingers, 2 25-foot stingers, maybe a combo stand, and 10 sand or shop bags. And that would be kind of my, you know, this will probably get you through pretty much all the smaller productions.
Okay.
List, I think. I could probably add more. Well, I could always add more. Clamps up the wazoo. Buy a bunch of clamps.
Of course. Yeah. So your YouTube channel, Grip Tips. Would you mind going into what inspired you to start the channel?
Sure. When I first started getting started, you know, a lot of the things that I was trying to look up and research, and I was reading the book from Harry, and I just noticed that like I'm more of a visual learner. So you know, going on set and getting my hands on things, by then going back home and being like, what the hell is it that I just touched or whatever? There's no videos on this, and there was only like 2 YouTubers at the time that even remotely did anything close. you know, you can see all these different YouTube channels that'll say like, this is how you do a C-stand, or, you know, whatever, but nothing really with like hardcore in depth, you know, here's a distro system, here's speed rail, here's the different types of clamps that you're going to use. I mean, there are some episodes that are out there, but they don't really show why they're going to be using those all the time. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I was kind of like, you know, somebody should really do this. So I started thinking about it, and I'm like, well, that would kind of set me apart. You know, there's so many channels out there that talk about lenses and cameras and editing and blah, 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 blah. There's so much of that out there. But then there's nothing really on grip and electric at all. And so I just kind of decided, I was like, okay, I'll only talk about camera on the show when I have to, but for the most part, it's just going to be straight up lighting. And so, you know, one episode became another, and I just kept putting it out there, and it was really cool. I started getting a lot of feedback. I've been really blessed in the sense that a lot of different Facebook groups that I'm in have made me connect with a lot of really great people. And then I've also been able to work with a lot of different companies like Matthews and Aperture and Below the Line Production Supply. Had a couple of sponsors, which those guys are great. So it was kind of something. I should say two things. It wasn't just the idea of having the thought of having just a grip and electric channel, but it was also the fact that I was still traveling around, being kind of more of a grip PA, and I would be gone for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and then I would come home, and I'd be home for like a week and a half or something, so I needed something to do to kind of fill that time. So I just kind of put it all together, and I'm like, okay, when I come home, I'll do a little bit of this, and if I have more downtime. I tried to do a weekly thing, and it's been kind of hard. But I mean, when I had a lot of free time, but now that we're like, I don't know, 3-4 years later, I started working for a company called Shinola Detroit as their videographer, and so now all the time I had during the week, because making your own YouTube channel is stupid hard, especially if you're just doing it by yourself. Yeah. But then adding the 9 to 5 and adding on the other freelance gigs, and then adding on, you know, if I can go and be a background extra or an actor, you know, adding all that in, it sucks up a lot of time. But you know, kind of worth it. It's been. I love seeing comments of people that are just like, I'm learning so much about your channel. And I'm just kind of like, well, thank God somebody loves it. And then you get somebody else who's like, you're an idiot and I hate you and everything that you stand for. And I'm like, whatever, fine. I am. Moving on.
Do you have any videos that you're like particularly proud of? Anything that comes to mind that you're like, okay, yeah, this is good.
I try to make the show as funny as I can now and again. So there was an episode that I did about sandwiches, and it was just simply because of the punchline that happened. I mean, so a sandwich is you have 2 black solids or flags, 2x3 kit, and then you have a silk, and then you have a double net, a single net, maybe a triple net, and then a cookie. A lot of people understand what a cookie is. Kind of some gobos for lights. So you put it together, and it's actually called like a DP sandwich. And so after putting that all together, I'm like, okay, well, to remember this, then you've got like 2 black solids. Those are your bread. Then you have like your tomato. Then you have your lettuce. Then you have your cheese. Then you have your cookies. Then you have your blueberries. And then I was just kind of like, I gotta know what this tastes like, and I actually formed the sandwich and ate it on the show, and so many people were like, you have me dying when you gagged on a sandwich. So I'm addicted to audience reaction a little bit, so when I see little people get interactive, it makes me happy.
So we have a question here. Is it a good idea to get equipment off of Harbor Freight?
I guess specifically what? If it's tools, maybe they can get you by for a little bit, but I'm more of a fan of trying to get things that are name brand. First of all, you're not going to find a C stand inside of Harbor Freight.
Right.
You're also not going to find light stands. You might find stands for other applications for those tools or whatever, but no, I say it's worth to save up to buy equipment from real manufacturers like you can go with like American or Matthews. Matthews is a personal favorite of mine, but that's because I kind of grew up using their brand. And then I wouldn't just go for the cheapest thing unless it's like a passion project and you just need to get by for that particular day.
Right.
But if it's a long-term investment, dude, save and buy the real thing. Hope that answers that.
Yeah.
Maybe they're talking tools.
Yeah.
Because Harbor Freight is it's like a cheaper
Like
Ace
tools.
Hardware.
Yeah. Right.
So.
Do you feel that grip and electric don't get enough credit?
Absolutely. I don't think that they do. I mean, if they did, I wouldn't be like one of 4 channels out there that are actually talking about it.
Right.
There's so much talk about camera and all this stuff, and it's like, I think that grip and electric could. I mean, grip and electric does so much. It's not just. Let me explain the difference between grip and electric. I guess that would be the best thing to say.
Right.
So you have the set electricians, which are going to give you the actual light source, right? So this is a Q5L S from Quasar. You've got the electrics that are actually giving the light, right? And then you have grips that are actually going to give you kind of the shade. On top of that, though, electrics don't just set up the lights. They also provide all the electricity that goes around a set. Hair and makeup, crafty, camera, every single thing that has an electrical pulse needs some sort of electricity somehow. So yeah, they have a lot to do with just being very important just for power. Now grips, on the opposite, we don't mess with power, but grips, they help out the camera team, camera movement, or camera movement. They can do things for camera cranes. They can do things for even sound. There is such a thing known as a sound, or is it sound dolly? You have dolly grip and sound dolly. I don't know. I've never met one, but they even help out the sound department. I mean, I think that they're just equally as important. So.
Okay. What was one of your favorite projects that you worked on? And if you could give any explanation as to why.
Eminem.
Okay, yeah.
Well, to date, I should say. I would say Transformers when I was a PA. Not to say that I didn't do a whole lot on that, but ultimately, I liked the Eminem shoot because it was the first time I actually put together an ellipsoidal. Which an ellipsoidal, a lot of people who don't know what that is, it's like if you go to any type of theater show, you can typically see a few of these, up in the perms, pointing down at the stage, which they typically look like a spotlight, but I didn't realize how much you could actually do with an ellipsoidal. The song was called Walk on Water. And it's the very first beginning shot in the music video. Eminem is sitting in a chair on the stage with a microphone, and we had a little bit of a smoke machine going in. And we put a Joker 800, or Joe Lico, above, and we cut this light so thin. It was me and another gaffer named Laura, and another buddy of mine named Corey, who put this together. And then when I saw like what it was actually doing on stage, I was like, I never knew I could do that. That's so awesome. So it's honestly just that one time, because I'm kind of like source for Lico lights for everything.
Yeah.
It's such a great So that would probably be that one
For sure. What was the hardest project that you worked on, and was there anything that you learned afterwards?
hardest project. Just in general, or does it have to be grip and electric?
Preferred grip and electric, but
Well, sure.
If you have a general story, then.
I have more of a general one. This is another reality show that I became their AC on, and they were shooting on PMW 200s. They had 4 of those in a 5D that they were flying around on a Ronin, but they had just made a purchase for 4 FS7s. And as their AC, I had to have all 9 of those built within the first 20 minutes to a half an hour every day.
Oh, so yeah, you had to.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
But they also knew that I had this Genie background too, because they kind of brought me up from that. So it wasn't just giving all these cameras out to the couple of operators, but it was also a little bit of lighting. It's kind of just bouncing all over the place, and that I did for 13 episodes, 5 days an episode. That was my Vietnam. But on the grip and electric side of things, I don't think so. Not that it's not hard work or it's not challenging or anything like that, but it's not to that point of just like you're going to lose your mind. You know, for the most part, you know, part A goes to part B. It's very, very quick and simple. It's just all the actual lifting of everything that you're doing is back-breaking and callous, and I don't really think I have one there.
Right. Okay.
Just physical.
Oh, for sure. So, of course, we all know that, you know, your lights have to be good. They have to be balanced correctly, and not always. It's not always the case that more light is better. Have you ever noticed that on set, less light actually worked out more for a shot?
Yeah, and I mean that even goes back to that M&M shoot. It's just the one light, and it's such a big setup. I mean, the shot was, I don't know, it's the stage of I think it's is it the Majestic or the Masonic? I can't remember, but it's a huge stage, and it was literally just that one light coming down, and there was some great like shadows on Eminem's face, and made it very dark and moody, and it was a blue color, which made it feel cold, which was the idea in the video because it started snowing. And I didn't even know what they were going to do, like in the video. At the time, I had never even heard the song, but it was just kind of cool to kind of watch it all come together. And but yeah, sometimes less lighting is pays off way more, especially in like, you know, something like film noir, you know, where you're working strictly with shadows. You're not, you know, working with let's light everything as best as we can.
For sure.
So,
do you have any advice for people that are doing grip and electric on sets that use actual film cameras? Do you have experience shooting?
I actually don't have any experience with actual film.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in front of some cameras that used actual film, but I was a background extra.
Gotcha.
Never really messed with film. There's something that I've actually really wanted to do. If I can, I don't have a real light meter or spectrometer. Okay. But there was this cool little like app that I found for my phone, which you can. Sekonic, I should say this first. Sekonic is a company that makes light meters and spectrometers. You've got your light meters that are going to measure your exposure, and then you have the spectrometers, which are going to tell you the color. They're going to tell you how many lux and lumens are coming out of it. And basically, this is kind of a 2-in-1, but it's more, no offense to this company, Lumu Power, but this is kind of a 2-in-1, where if you plug this into your phone inside of the app, you can kind of hold this next to my face to try and get an exposure for your camera. But then you can pull it out and turn it around to see exactly what is the color and etc. And that's just kind of a dumbed down version of the meter that I would like to get, which is, there's a spectrometer called a C800U, and there's a light meter that I think is like a a particular, just kind of just a standard like light meter. And what they said on their site is to take a digital camera, a DSLR or whatever, and tape the front of your screen, and then try to expose just using the meter based off of what you know. And it's a challenge I've always wanted to do, because maybe there comes that day where I actually have to work with film, and that's going to be the best way to do or to practice something like that.
Right.
So, so I know I've never been able to light anything for actual film, but it's definitely something I want to do.
Of course.
See if I can do it.
Right. Do you have any experience lighting for a shot that's intended to be in black and white? No?
No.
Gotcha. Alrighty. Well, I believe that's all we have for today.
Oh, okay.
I just do have one more question. Do you have anything you'd like to plug towards the end of the stream? Is there anything that you'd like to promote for yourself?
Yeah.
No?
Okay, I'm kidding. Yeah, go ahead and check out my YouTube channel. It's called Grip Tips. You can find it at youtube.com/grip tips. I also do have a website. It's www.griptips.net. So you can check out there. Most of the stuff that I review on the channel, you can actually find some of the equipment that I'm teaching over on that website. So if you actually like something that you've seen in one of the episodes, you can actually go over to the website. And yes, I do have like an Amazon Associates account like most YouTubers have. So yeah, I see a little bit of a kickback on that. But at the same time, you can go through there. You'll see even the episode posted next to the piece of equipment. Just maybe you're just shopping around, looking for something new. So say that.
All right. Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure having you on. And I was asked to come up here and promote some of our stuff.
So go for it. I'll knock this out of your way.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Nick. I have my mask on because we are promoting social distancing and set safety. Make sure you guys all check out the Royal Starr Film Festival. And next week we have Ryan De Silva as our guest for
Really?
our FANME Q&A. Yeah,
Oh, that guy.
absolutely. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Check out our website at royalstar.org, and we'll see you next time.
Still got to hit stop, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Good. Good.